It always begins the same way, doesn't it? She looks at you, but not as you are, not the man standing right in front of her. No, she looks through you, past you, into a version of you she's built in her mind. You can feel it, can't you? That glimmer in her eyes. Is it hope? Is it desire? Maybe it's hunger. But make no mistake, it's not you she's seeing. It's a potential, a possibility, a projection. You think you're being seen, but really you're being scanned, measured, weighed against a fantasy. You're the blank canvas, and she's already reaching for the brush. The painting? It isn't you. It never was. It's the man she's imagined, rehearsed, dreamed about since she was a little girl. And whether you know it or not, whether she knows it or not, she's already cast you in her internal movie. But here's the catch. When you stop playing the part right, she doesn't rewrite the story. She just replaces the actor. Carl Jung tried to warn you. Not with feel-good quotes or TikTok advice. No, his words cut sharp, like a surgeon with a scalpel, slicing into the darkest parts of the human psyche. Jung spent his life charting the human unconscious, the invisible force running beneath your awareness, influencing your behavior, your emotions, your choices. And what he found, especially about women, wasn't easy to swallow. Jung realized that women don't just fall in love with a man, they fall in love with the idea of a man, with the image, the story, the archetype. They fall in love with the version of you they create, not the real man behind the mask. And here's the most dangerous part. They're usually not even aware they're doing it. So you think you're being chosen, right? You think you're special. But the truth? You're not being chosen for who you are. You're being chosen for how well you fit the script she's been rehearsing for years. And the moment you deviate, the moment you go off script, she doesn't pause the movie, she changes the cast. Jung had a word for this process. He called it projection. Specifically the animus, the inner masculine image that lives in every woman's unconscious. And when this animus is immature, undeveloped, or unchecked, it turns into a tyrant. It becomes this invisible puppeteer pulling the strings, and you as a man don't even see it coming. That animus, the unchecked, shadowy masculine force, can turn women into critics, manipulators, or even self-righteous moralizers without any awareness that something deeper is driving their behavior. They'll fight without reason, dominate without compassion, demand without reflection. And you're left wondering what just happened. Jung didn't romanticize this. He called it spiritual possession. A woman overtaken by her inner fantasy, living not from her conscious mind, but from a ghost inside her psyche. And you? You're the guy she ropes into the fantasy. You think you're different. You think she really sees me. But she doesn't. You're just the newest actor in a story she's been telling herself her whole life. And when it unravels, when the fantasy breaks down, what are you left with? Confusion, pain, betrayal. You start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being a convincing character in her drama. Jung taught that the only way to escape this psychological theatre is through a brutal, lifelong process he called individuation, the work of becoming a whole, fully integrated self. But here's the truth that no one wants to say. Most men never even start that journey. Why? Because you've been conditioned to seek validation. You've been raised to chase her approval. You've been trained, consciously or unconsciously, to let women define your worth. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll keep playing the same role, over and over, always wondering why the show keeps ending the same way. Individuation isn't sexy. It's not a movie montage set to inspiring music. It's a war. And the enemy? Yourself. The parts you've hidden, the weak parts, the ashamed parts, the broken, bitter, scared little boy inside you. And no, this isn't about blaming women. This is about finally seeing yourself. Because Jung understood something most men will never grasp. You don't become a man because she picks you. You become a man the moment you pick yourself. You don't find your worth in her affection. You find it in your solitude, in your silence, in your suffering. That's where the real work begins. A man who has faced his unconscious cannot be manipulated by projection. He doesn't fall for fantasy. He doesn't need to perform. He's not waiting to be discovered. He writes his own script. Jung once said that the tragedy of modern men isn't that they get rejected, it's that they willingly shapeshift into whatever they believe women want. You think it's noble, you call it compromise, you think it's love. But Jung had another word for it. self-betrayal. He warned that men who abandon their inner growth, who ignore their soul, end up bending themselves into whatever shape is demanded by a woman who hasn't confronted her own inner demons. You stop being a man. You become a mask, a performance, a puppet, and eventually you forget who you were before you started pretending. And women feel that. Even if they can't explain it, they sense it. They smell it. The very things you think make you lovable, being available, agreeable, always saying yes, are the very things that kill their attraction. Because the feminine instinct? It's not drawn to safety. It's not turned on by predictability. Jung taught that the feminine seeks mystery, depth, the man she can't fully define or control. The moment you become completely available, entirely known, completely unguarded, she doesn't love you more. She loses interest. You don't become irresistible, you become invisible. And yet this is the trap that keeps most men stuck. You're more afraid of being alone than you are of being fake. You would rather abandon yourself than risk losing her. You'll live in the lie, wear the costume, read the script, all to avoid standing on the stage alone without applause. But until you do that, until you face that moment, you'll never be free. Because individuation, it demands something terrifying, that you die before you die. That you let every false version of yourself burn so something real, something permanent, can finally rise from the ashes. But let's be real, individuation isn't for the faint of heart. It's lonely, deeply, sometimes terrifyingly lonely. Because as you begin to walk that path, you start to see things you can't unsee. You notice the games people play to feel safe, the masks they wear, the stories they tell themselves to avoid the truth. And when you try to speak it out loud, when you try to share what you're learning, most people won't thank you. They'll attack you. They'll call you arrogant, cold, emotionless. They'll say, "You've changed," like that's a bad thing. But you haven't changed. You've just stopped pretending. And the truth? People hate the mirror, especially when it reflects something they've been trying to avoid. Jung understood this more deeply than most. He spent decades working with patients who were terrified to face their own shadows, terrified to admit they had parts of themselves they didn't want to see. Especially women raised in cultures that reward emotionality, intuition, and being seen as complete, without ever having to confront what lives in their unconscious. Jung never said women were broken. He said they were unexamined. And the greatest danger, he warned, was the unconscious animus, that masculine voice inside a woman's psyche that speaks with false certainty, false logic, false moral superiority. It's not her conscious mind, it's the shadow in disguise. And if she doesn't confront it, if she doesn't integrate it, she becomes ruled by it, possessed by it. And then she projects it onto every man she meets. She'll blame you for the very war she refuses to fight within herself. And here's where things get messy. Because you're convinced you're different. You think you're the one who will save her, heal her, love her hard enough that she finally sees you. But what you don't realize is this. She's not choosing you. She's choosing the character in her story. And when you can't live up to that fantasy, and you never really could, she'll turn on you. She won't even realize why. But suddenly you'll go from hero to villain, from ideal to disappointment. Not because you changed, but because you failed to uphold the myth she cast you in. And she'll resent you, not for your flaws, but for not being the man she never told you she needed you to be. Jung called this kind of betrayal inevitable when people refuse to take responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't deceive her. You didn't betray her. You simply weren't the figment of her imagination. And in that gap between reality and fantasy, relationships collapse. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Nowhere is that more true than in romantic relationships. We call it love, but often it's just projection in disguise. Two people, neither of them whole, reaching for each other not as they truly are, but as carriers of their unmet needs, their childhood wounds, their internal myths. We tell ourselves it's passion, but it's really possession. And you, like so many men, keep falling into the same trap. You say she was different, but was she? Or was she just a new face playing a familiar role? Same play, different actress. You want to blame her, call her manipulative, self-absorbed. But Jung would turn the question around. Why did you choose her? Why did you fall for the woman who made you prove yourself, perform for her, mold yourself to be chosen? That's the real question. Because until you confront your own inner world, your own abandoned feminine, your own desire to be mothered rather than met, you will be a slave to hers. You are not a victim in this story. You're a volunteer. You offered yourself up to the illusion because the alternative, facing your own emptiness, was just too much. And this is where most men check out. This is where they turn off the video, scroll away, distract themselves. Because this isn't where the comfort lives. This is where the responsibility begins. Jung didn't offer easy solutions. He didn't give you 5 tips to become alpha. What he offered was far more demanding. He offered a challenge. Sit in the silence. Face yourself. Stop running. He asked you to stay in that lonely, echoing room inside your own head until the illusions start to crack, until that voice inside, the one that whispers, "You're nothing without her," finally dies. And it won't go quietly. That voice will fight you. It will tell you that you need her to feel like a man, that you'll never make it without her validation, that love makes you whole. But Jung's work whispers something far more radical. The man who can stand without her, without applause, without needing to be needed, is the man who is finally free, free from the fantasy, free from performance, free from the soul-numbing fear of being alone. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you get there, when you finally stop performing, something shifts. You don't become cold. You become real. You become solid, grounded, present in your own body, alive in your own truth. And suddenly, without trying, you become magnetic. Not because you're chasing, not because you're trying to impress, but because women can feel it. They can feel that you don't need them to feel whole. You've already done the work. And in that space, something even more incredible happens. You begin to see her clearly for the first time, not as a savior, not as an emotional prize, but as a human being, on her own path, facing her own illusions, battling her own animus. You realize you can't fix her. You can't carry her soul for her. You can't walk her path. All you can do is walk your own with such integrity, such clarity, such fierce truth, that it becomes a mirror. And when people see themselves in that mirror, they'll either run or rise. Most will run. But the rare few who stay, those are the ones worth meeting. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for a role and being respected for who you truly are. And here's where the shift gets real. When you finally stop performing, stop chasing, stop trying to fit the mold, people won't know what to do with you. You'll start to notice how uncomfortable they get around your presence. Not because you're loud, not because you're aggressive, but because you've become solid. You're no longer playing by the rules of a game they didn't even realize they were in. Carl Jung warned us, the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He doesn't fit the boxes. He's not easy to label. People will call him distant, arrogant, too much in his head. But the truth is, he's just untouchable, unmanipulable. He sees through the illusion. And that scares the hell out of people, especially women who are still ruled by projection. They'll say you're emotionally unavailable. They'll accuse you of not being vulnerable enough, of being too analytical. But what they really mean is this. You're no longer controllable. You've stepped off their stage. You've put down the script. You're not playing the role anymore. And without the role, they don't know who you are. Or worse, who they are around you. Jung once said, the gods have become diseases. What ancient people used to call divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. And in this age, the most common spiritual sickness among men is the constant pursuit of feminine validation. You think it's love when you say, I'd do anything for her. You think it's noble to say, she's my everything. But Jung would shake his head and say, no, that's not love. That's fear. That's dependency. That's the refusal to carry your own soul. Because if she's your everything, then what are you? Men have been conditioned to make women the carriers of their identity, their meaning, their hope, their worth. But here's the brutal truth. No woman can carry that weight for long. She might try. She might pretend she can. But eventually she'll drop it. She has to. Because she wasn't built to hold your soul. That's your job. And when she drops it, when she walks away or pulls back or starts looking at you with cold eyes, you'll feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her. Because in that moment, when the illusion collapses, when the performance ends, you finally see the truth. The work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw moment of clarity, you have two options. One, you can get angry. Blame her. Join the growing chorus of bitter men online, mocking women, hating them, calling them the problem, swearing them off, hiding behind rage and red pills and false bravado. Or two, you can do what Jung demanded. You can turn inward. You can finally begin the real work, the lonely, terrifying, liberating work of becoming whole without needing anyone else to complete you. Because here's the part no one talks about. The woman you're out there chasing, she's a mirror. A reflection of the part of you you've abandoned. Until you reclaim that part, every relationship will be a performance. Every moment of connection will be a subtle transaction. Every I love you will come with conditions. But when you do the work, when you face your own inner feminine, your own emptiness, your own wounded boy, you begin to transform. You stop needing women to validate you. You stop chasing, performing, proving. You stand, still, rooted, grounded, real. And something miraculous happens when you stand like that. You stop attracting women who want a fantasy, and you start attracting women who want the truth. She won't need you to perform. She won't pressure you to become her ideal. She won't mold you into the character she thinks she needs. She'll show up as she really is. No mask, no script, no performance. Just her. Not a goddess waiting to be worshipped. Not a broken girl waiting to be rescued. A woman. A whole, flawed, beautiful human being. And she'll look you in the eyes not as someone she wants to fix or shape or complete, but as someone she's ready to walk beside. And in that moment there won't be desperation. There won't be games. There won't be the unspoken contract of you make me feel whole and I'll do the same for you. There will only be truth. And that kind of love? The one born of freedom, not fear. That's the rarest kind of love. The kind that doesn't demand. The kind that chooses. The kind Jung called the most dangerous of all, because it asks you to be fully alive, not for someone else, but for yourself. But I have to be honest with you, most of you won't experience this, because most of you will quit. You'll settle for performance, for comfort, for the rush of being seen, even if it's not the real you, because facing who you really are still feels like too much. But if even a small part of you has the courage, the brutal, painful courage to keep walking, to keep stripping away every mask, you'll find yourself standing at the edge of something real, something beautiful, something terrifying. You'll find yourself. And in that moment, women won't be the source of your identity. They won't be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They'll be something else entirely. They'll be partners, not prizes, mirrors, not mothers, allies, not saviors. And you'll love them, not because you need them, but because you choose to. From strength, from wholeness, from a place that finally knows, without apology, who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave behind a how-to guide for men. He left a warning. That any man who refuses to confront himself, his shadows, his wounds, his illusions, will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge. To walk the path of individuation. To stop blaming women for the roles you willingly agreed to play. To stop searching for completion in someone else's eyes. To stop waiting to be picked. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's story. He becomes the author of his own. And if you've made it this far, if you felt something in your gut while listening, don't let that go. Don't just keep scrolling like this was just another video in your feed. Take a moment. Breathe. Reflect. And if you know another man who's still stuck in the illusion, still waiting to be chosen, share this with him. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up the men still asleep in someone else's fantasy. One man at a time.